Go inside and you will find rest. This is the name of a beautiful sermon, my favorite sermon, I think, of Father Zacharias. A lot of his sermons have been written into books. I think the name of that book is The Engraving of Christ on the Heart. It's a blue cover. It's one of the few I don't have of Father Zacharias' older collection. And but I've got it on CD. I frequently listen to it. Go inside and you will find rest. And he got this phrase from a Russian priest, I believe, who had said this to some Russian, aristocratic academic who was complaining to a priest about all kinds of conditions in her life, all kinds of variables. And he said, listen, silly woman, go inside and you will find rest. So that's what he calls his homily. And I think it's absolutely the experience of life right from the start of my early Christian journey. The world always seemed like a different place after a good hour in a church. A couple of hours in a church and the world looked differently. How many times have I walked into an abandoned church thinking, I've had enough. I've had a flip enough of it all. All the frustrations, the nonsense, the vanity, the darkness, and that's just in my own heart, And of course, we project it all outside, so it's the others who are doing my box in. And then, after a period of time of prayer and solitude, all seems differently. All seems different. All seems tolerable. All seems bearable. And love suffuses where previously there was only impatience, tension, darkness. Go inside and you will find rest. I think that's what you find in all of the texts on Christian spirituality of the East, of the Orthodox East. It's what you find in the Philokalia and the Neptic Fathers and the Church Fathers, the Desert Fathers. Go inside and you will find rest. And you think to yourself, well, why is that not more prevalent? I used to be a Buddhist. I was into Vipassana meditation when I was 18, 19, 20. In fact, for a number of years. Actually, 19 I would have started until the age of about 23, 24. And I became Christian, but straight away it started leading me actually towards Christian monasticism and, the literature which is peripheral and has an ecumenical ring to it, like Thomas Merton's work, which for me was actually instrumental to bring me into an interest in Christianity. So many people in the West have only been exposed to Christianity Light, Christianity 101, as it were. They might have heard formulas, the gospel message, and that can be lived in a very powerful way. And of course, the Bible is God-breathed, and there are those who are soaked in it, and the Lord is communicating into the depth of their hearts. But for so many, I think there's a sense that the message is very glib and light. Christianity 101, Christianity quite glib and light. When there's this wonderful ancient inner, from the Greek esoteric tradition, we remain in the exoteric, in the externals, on the surface level. And I think most Christians don't learn the secret of interior prayer. Probably some Orthodox probably don't believe it's for them. It's for monks. Many Catholics do as well. How come you read books like that? Are you a monk? Are you a priest? Oh, I thought you were a lay person. How come you're reading books like this? And all the time, these great fathers themselves will say, no, this is for everyone. I've been reading St. Nicodemus, the Holy Mountain of these days, his manual of spiritual, Manual of, I don't know, Manual of Holiness or something like that, Manual of Spiritual Counsel. And in that, he has a long section where of uniting the mind in the heart, of coming down into the heart, the center, where we spend all our life in the spokes and the outside and the periphery. Come into the center, the heart center of our being, because that's where the devil is working and lurking, and the demons, and so this is what has to be cleansed. I think Buddhists instinctively know this. It's part and parcel of their religion. Of course, there are Buddhists that don't meditate, but it kind of, certainly in the Western understanding, it's like, oh yeah, Buddhist equals meditation. To be a Christian doesn't equal deep interior prayer, though. Perhaps many might associate it with activism, with evangelism on the streets, judgmentalism, or some other thing, of activities that have their time and place, but unless the hub, unless the center is being cleansed and renewed, then we're just on the periphery. And I think this is the insight of the ancient Eastern Church, and it's kept it up. It's kept it up. The lineage is alive all the way back, certainly to the time of the Desert Fathers. The Desert Fathers who chased out of, shall we say, the deserts of Egypt and Syria, started making a beeline for Mount Athos. And ever since, you've had this enriching, deep interior prayer tradition centered on the Jesus prayer, hesychasm, stilling the chattering mind. Whereas in the West, there was the development of the cogito ergo sum, the I think, therefore I am, the associate. I asked a bunch of kids in school actually recently, I said, how many of you think you are your thoughts? How many of you would say, yep, I'm my thoughts? Bunch of 14-year-olds, nice folk. And I would say there's quite a few who don't respond to surveys, like, don't ask me questions first thing in the morning. But it was about half the class were willing to put their hand up and say, yep, I reckon I am my thoughts. Intelligent ones too. From an Eastern perspective, this doesn't fly. We're not our thoughts. The Buddhists know this, and so too do the Eastern Orthodox. We're not our thoughts. Our thoughts can come from God. Our thoughts can come from our own fallen flesh. Our thoughts can be neutral. Our thoughts can be demonic in origin, influenced by the demonic. How many stupidities have occurred through obsessive thoughts, through thoughts? And this is why we come into a church, as I said at the beginning of this, and the world is after really getting into that quiet place, that still place, using the Jesus prayer in the heart. The world's a different place when you go back into it. It's tolerable, where previously it was just a noise. There's an openness where before there was a closed fist. And God is back in the midst of it all. He, Jesus Christ, who makes all things new. I think it's very encouraging to see in Orthodoxy. It was two young lads at church the day 14, 15 school kids coming into the Orthodox Church, very keen, wanting to know all about it. And I think it's beautiful. It's a product of their own dissatisfaction with hedonism, with Babylon, as it were, looking for more. And it's to be hoped that they find, as we all do, the deep interior life that goes with true orthodoxy, that it's not just rituals and flags and traditions. This is the exoteric, as it were, the outer layer. That's not to denigrate it, but beyond and within all of that is the esoteric inner. Not to say that it's exclusive in any way to some specialized group. No, this is something that the Philokalia is keen to dismiss in part 5. Something that St. Nicodemus the Hagiorite is keen to dismiss, and many other of the early church fathers were keen to dismiss the idea that inner prayer is only for monks or clerics. And St. Nicodemus puts it like this: it's not, because we want all to be saved, and because God wants all to be saved. And salvation arguably comes through this deep experiential encounter with God, freeing the heart, cleansing the nous, opening us to a divine encounter with Jesus, which renews and makes us a new creation, makes us truly sons of God. Forgive me, that's just some impressions. Lastly, I'll leave you with a thought of one contemporary Greek elder who says, God never denies those who make sufficient effort a portion of his holiness.